This lecture video is going to go over the 6 processes involved with digestion. So just to do a quick overview again of the digestive organs and what they do. So starting with your mouth, its major function is to ingest food, to chew and mix food, to begin chemical breakdown of carbohydrates, that's going to occur in the mouth, and move food into the pharynx. It will also begin a small amount of breakdown of lipids versus through an enzyme called linguinal lipase. Some of the other functions the mouth does is it helps moisten and dissolve food, which allows you to actually taste it, which is the best part of food, right? It cleans and lubricates the teeth and oral cavity, and there is some antimicrobial activity that occurs in there just to keep bacteria at bay. Moving down to your pharynx, its job is to propel food from the oral cavity. So your pharynx is kind of like your mouth, or your throat, propels food from the oral cavity to the esophagus. It also helps lubricate food and passageways. As you move your way down to the esophagus, its job is to propel food down to the stomach. And it will also lubricate food and passageways in order to help facilitate that process. Getting down to the stomach, it's a large storage organ. It mixes and churns food with gastric acids or gastric juices to form a chemical called chyme. It begins the chemical breakdown of proteins. So we started a little carbohydrate breakdown in the mouth, a little bit of lipid breakdown in the mouth as well, but proteins won't start broken down until it reaches the stomach. It releases food into the duodenum as chyme. It absorbs some fat-soluble substances. So for example, alcohol and aspirin are going to get absorbed in the stomach. And it also has some antimicrobial functions as well. Other functions of the stomach is that it helps stimulate protein digesting enzymes, and it secretes intrinsic factor. And this is going to be a chemical that's required for vitamin 12 absorption in your small intestines. Going down next to the small intestines, which is going to mix chyme with digestive juices, it will propel food at a rate that's slow enough for digestion and absorption to occur. It absorbs breakdown products of carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids, along with vitamins, minerals, and water. And it does perform some physical digestion via segmentation. And it is going to really provide the optimal medium for enzyme activity to occur. This is going to be where most of your chemical digestion takes place. Some of the accessory organs then that are going to play a role or work together with that small intestines is going to be your liver, your gallbladder, and your pancreas. Your liver produces bile salts, which are going to help break down fats, aiding in their digestion and then their absorption. Your gallbladder is going to store that bile and release it when you consume fatty foods. And your pancreas is going to produce digestive enzymes and bicarbonate, also going to help regulate your blood sugar levels. Once the food leaves the small intestines, your accessory organs, liver, gallbladder, and pancreas, food never actually enters into those organs. They just secrete their substances into the small intestines. The large intestines then is going to be the next place that food will go coming in from the small intestines. It's going to further break down food residue. It's going to absorb any residual water. So it's going to dehydrate basically any waste products, and also compact them in order to make what we know as feces, and it'll push that feces towards the rectum, and the rectum and anus will then eliminate that feces. So those are just, again, a quick overview of the organs of the digestive system. There are 6 processes of digestion: ingestion, propulsion, mechanical digestion, chemical digestion, absorption, and defecation. The first of these processes is ingestion, and it just refers to the entry of food into our bodies, right? We can't make our own food. We have to bring food in. We have to eat. So ingestion is going to be bringing that food in. Once the food is in, it's chewed and mixed with saliva, which starts breaking down carbohydrates and also a little bit of lipids. And chewing is really important actually because it increases the surface area of the food and it allows an appropriately sized bolus to be produced. So if you have time right now, go grab a cracker, put it in your mouth, eat it, chew it up really good. Don't swallow it. Just keep chewing, keep chewing, keep chewing. And that big lump of food and saliva is called a bolus. The food will leave the mouth, or that bolus is going to leave the mouth when swallowing occurs. Pharyngeal muscles will actually pull it down into the esophagus. And this act of swallowing is really the last voluntary act of digestion. So you bringing food in, you chewing it, and you swallowing it, you think about those things, you can kind of control those things. Everything else until defecation is going to be just automatically controlled by your body. It's not going to be something that you're going to need to think about. But this act of swallowing is an example of propulsion, so swallowing, and then also moving that food down the esophagus through alternating muscle contractions is called peristalsis, and both of those are part of the propulsion stage. Digestion also includes mechanical and chemical processes. So mechanical digestion, you can see that down here, is going to be when we physically break apart food. We physically grind it, make it smaller, and tear it apart. So obviously this is going to be done by your mouth when you're chewing and your teeth. It's also going to be done in your stomach. Your stomach's going to do muscle contractions that are going to churn it. I kind of think of like a cement trunk. And then also through the process of segmentation, which occurs in the small intestines. And basically segmentation is just localized contraction of that muscularis tissue layer that exists in the small intestine tissues. And again, its job is to break things apart, also kind of helps move things through a little bit as well, or makes it easier to move things through. Chemical digestion starts in the mouth when digestive secretions break down our complex food molecules into their chemical building blocks. So example, if you think way back to the chemistry unit, right? We have proteins. They're going to be made of units of amino acids. So chemical digestion is going to be taking a protein and breaking it down into an amino acid. A polysaccharide, we talked about a sugar, a starch, right? A polysaccharide is a starch. It's going to be broken down into its individual sugar units. It's monosaccharides. So that's what chemical digestion is. And it's going to be aided by a bunch of different secretions and enzymes that are going to be involved, which we'll talk about in a different lecture video. That's going to help chemically break these things down. Food that has been broken down is of no value to you unless it enters your bloodstream, right? That's what we want. We want these nutrients to get into our bloodstream and get to our cells where they can use it for energy. So this process of absorption, which is the next process of digestion, is going to take place primarily in the small intestines. Most of the nutrients are going to be absorbed from the lumen of the GI tract into the bloodstream through all of those epithelial cells that make up the mucosa, right? So that was the lining that kind of lined the digestive tract, the lumen. So we're going to absorb through those epithelial cells into the bloodstream. Lipids are absorbed into lacteals and are transported through the lymphatic vessels to the bloodstream. And we'll talk about that also in a different lecture video. And then the last stage is defecation. This is going to also be controlled by, it's a voluntary activity, right? You choose when you're going to defecate. And this is going to be undigested material that will end up getting removed from the body as feces. So those are kind of the 6 stages or processes involved in digestion. One small note is just to recognize that each of these processes don't occur in just one single organ. So basically all the different organs of our digestive system can do one or more of these different processes. So if you just think about mechanical digestion, breaking up food, well, that occurs in your mouth, it occurs in your esophagus, into your stomach, it occurs in your small intestines. So that these aren't necessarily in order, like ingestion, propulsion, like this happens chronologically. This is going on at various different stages throughout your body at one time, It can be carried out by one organ, although usually most of these are going to be carried out by more than one organ.